He could have stopped after the first small scam that barely crossed any real line. It was harmless at first, just bending truth a little to win something small. Nobody got hurt, at least that's what he kept telling himself that night. And for a moment, it even felt like he was finally ahead of the game. But that moment didn't last, because winning changed something inside him. He realized rules only mattered if you were too weak to break them. And Jimmy McGill was tired of being the weak one in every room. He tried to play fair for years, and it never really worked for him. Every door stayed closed no matter how hard he knocked politely. Respect was always just out of reach, like it wasn't meant for him. His brother saw him as a mistake that could never be corrected. The system saw him as noise, not someone worth taking seriously. So when cheating worked, it didn't feel wrong, it felt necessary, like finally using the only tool that actually did something real. That's how it starts, not with evil, but with something that works. A shortcut here, a lie there, a trick that saves time and effort. Each success quietly rewrites what you believe is acceptable, and slowly the line between right and wrong starts to fade, not because you forgot it, but because it stopped helping you. Jimmy didn't wake up one day and decide to become someone else. He just kept choosing the option that worked better each time. And over time, those choices built a version of him that survived. A version that didn't wait for approval or permission anymore. That version had a name, and it wasn't Jimmy McGill anymore. It was Saul Goodman, a man who always had an angle ready. A man who could turn any situation into something profitable. A man who never waited for the system to give him anything, because he already knew the system would never choose him. Saul wasn't just smarter, he was free in a dangerous way. Free from rules, from shame, from needing anyone's approval. And once you feel that kind of freedom, it's hard to go back. Because going back means accepting everything you escaped. It means being ignored again, being small again, being nobody. And Jimmy knew exactly what that felt like deep inside. That feeling never left him. It just changed shape over time. It became fuel, pushing him further every single time he hesitated. Every doubt was answered by one simple thought that never failed. This works, so why would I stop doing it now? And that question is more dangerous than any bad intention, because it removes guilt and replaces it with logic instead. It turns wrong choices into efficient decisions that feel justified. That's when stopping stops being easy, or even possible anymore. Because now you're not choosing between good and bad, you're choosing between what works and what leaves you behind. And for Jimmy, being left behind was never an option again, not after everything he had already gone through before. Not after proving to himself that he could finally win, even if winning meant becoming someone completely different. He tried to balance it at first, keeping parts of Jimmy alive, but Saul kept growing, taking more space with every success. The more he relied on it, the less room Jimmy had left, until one day it stopped feeling like a choice at all. It felt like the only version of himself that actually functioned. And that's when the trap fully closes without any warning. Because now stopping isn't just about changing behavior, it's about losing the only identity that actually works. And that's a loss most people can't handle at all. Especially someone who spent his whole life feeling invisible. Saul was never invisible. Saul was impossible to ignore. He was loud, confident, untouchable in his own mind. Everything Jimmy wasn't, Saul became without hesitation. And that contrast made it impossible to go backwards, because backwards meant becoming the weaker version again, the version that failed, that waited, that got dismissed. And Jimmy hated that version more than anything else. So every time he had a chance to stop, he didn't take it. Not because he didn't see the consequences coming clearly, but because the alternative felt even worse to him. Stopping meant losing everything that made him effective. It meant giving up control in a world that never gave him any. And control is addictive when you've never had it before. The more control he felt, the more he needed to keep it. And the only way to keep it was to keep going forward, further into the role that gave him that power daily. Saul Goodman wasn't just a persona anymore at that point. It was a system, a way of thinking, a way of reacting. Every problem had a Saul solution, fast and efficient. And Jimmy's slower moral approach just couldn't compete. So it disappeared, replaced by something sharper and colder, something that didn't hesitate or second-guess itself. And hesitation is what keeps people from crossing lines. Without it, those lines become easy to step over, almost invisible, like they were never really there. That's why it never felt like a big turning point. There was no single moment where everything changed, just a series of small steps that led to the same place, a place where stopping doesn't make sense anymore, because everything around you is built on not stopping. Your success, your identity, your sense of control, all of it depends on continuing the same pattern. And breaking that pattern feels like destroying yourself, not fixing yourself, not saving yourself, but ending it. That's the illusion that keeps people like Saul moving. They think stopping is death, not a second chance. So they choose to continue, no matter the cost ahead, even when the cost becomes impossible to ignore anymore. Even when everything starts falling apart around them, even then stopping feels like the worst possible option, because now there's too much built on this version of you. Too many decisions that can't be undone or explained away, too many lines crossed to pretend they never existed before. So you keep going, not forward, but deeper into the same path, a path that only moves in one direction over time. And the longer you stay on it, the harder it is to leave, until eventually leaving isn't even something you consider, because there's nothing left to return to anymore. Jimmy McGill doesn't exist in a usable form anymore. There's only Saul Goodman, and he doesn't stop. Not because he can't physically choose to stop at all, but because stopping would erase everything he became. And for him, that's a price he was never willing to pay.